year gets underway, and here I think I saw some of the faces of our early career teachers when there was the provincial event in the fall in Fredericton, and now it's January, and here I am. So I've been telling people all along that I'm not too far away from anyone, and if any staff member across our district ever wants to ask a question or wants to talk about something, I will make the time for it to happen, but it does require people to reach out to me and send me an email or drop me a note to say they want to chat, because finding the time to make that happen amongst all of the meetings and things is kind of crazy as it goes along. So it's hard to believe that we just got the year started. It seems like yesterday, and we're in January. Holy smokes! And I think the year's ticking away quickly. And Amber had said, talk a bit about my career to you, and that what I think is probably something that I would say about each year is they keep getting faster and faster. They seem to speed up as each year that we're in. But I've had a really terrific career, and I would say that when I was back at the beginning, before I got into administration and into working at the school district level, I had no dreams and no aspirations of being a school leader, let alone a district leader. But I've had some great opportunities, and then I think it just seemed that the path kept pointing me in this direction, and so here I am. But my internship when I first started work was at middle level, and I had grade 7 and taught social studies and English language arts in grade 7, and I absolutely loved it, and I couldn't imagine doing anything else than teaching grade 7. And it was so much fun. And then I had an opportunity to move to a high school, and I went into the high school. And my first year there, I had quite a collection of things, because I was teaching social studies and history to the French immersion students, which would have been my background. And then I also had some French as a second language for some students. And then when it came to the second year there, the principal, I remember him talking to the parents, because there was going to be a new way of organizing in high school. And he said that he'd hired an absolutely great math specialist, an expert in teaching math. And I thought, well, I kind of left that meeting thinking, well, I guess that means that I don't think that's me. So I think that means I'm going to be looking for another job somewhere else next year. And come to find out, when I went and talked with him, he decided that I was going to be the expert in math. So I took on a huge math teaching load at the middle level that next year, and some grade 9 as well. So I had a bit of an experience doing that. And I loved high school, and I thought that's where I wanted to stay all of my career. And then I had an opportunity to go and teach grade 3 at an elementary school. And I thought, well, let's give it a try and see how it goes. What could go wrong? And I really and honestly, and I'd grown up with the kids all around me, with cousins, but I remember when it came to like the month of November, I was still thinking, my God, what have I done? I really wasn't used to, I was used to little kids. I wasn't used to little kids who weren't related touching me. And, when I would sit down at my desk and I would go to read with the kid, and the kid crawled up on or didn't crawl up, but sat on my knee to read. And I got a little bit freaked by that. And I thought, okay, what's going on? But within a short period of time, I really loved the elementary school, and I think I got adjusted. Now, I learned lots that year, because it almost felt like, even after a few years of experience at other levels, I felt like really a brand new teacher, because I was at the elementary. And I think those elementary teachers helped me so much. And one thing that I would always comment on was that working in an elementary taught me how to be a better teacher across the board, because I always thought if I was back in a middle school or a high school, that boy, I've learned a lot about education from working with elementary school age children. Now, the parents that year, that very first year, I think they were ready to hang me out to dry, because on picture day, my entire class had to have retakes, because our picture schedule was after lunch, and it was pizza day. And I didn't think I had to tell them to wash their faces. I mean, I washed my own face. I didn't think that was something you had to do in elementary. And all of their proofs from pizza day came back with pizza sauce around the outside of their mouth. So they all had to have retakes. And I'm sure the parents were thinking, what nincompoop is in that grade 3 class with our kids, because he is just ludicrous. But anyway, I think we got used to it as the year went on. But that was one definite piece for me. I think that's what I would encourage people to do every time that I see them, is look for those opportunities that come up, because you may not see yourself doing a particular subject area. You might not see yourself at a particular level, but it was other people who said to me, we think you'd be really good giving this a try. And I know I encounter lots of situations today where people have those conversations with staff members and think, you should give this a try. And when we don't see ourselves doing something, sometimes we react really differently. Like maybe we get offended when somebody says that, because maybe we're thinking that that's implying we're not doing a good job at what we're doing. But I do trust a lot of the experienced people around us, because I've learned to trust them, and I've learned to trust that sometimes they can see in me things that I never could see in myself. And that really did point me in the right direction. And then people kept encouraging me when opportunities for leadership came up. I People kept saying to me, we think you'd be really good if you were the principal or the vice principal. And I spent a few years as a vice principal and then as principal at the elementary level, and absolutely loved that work, because it wasn't only helping all of those students and their families the way I was in my classroom experience, but I got to work with teachers every day too, which was phenomenal for me, because I liked being in their classrooms and I liked being able to help them out become better at what they were doing. And I was great at finding resources and being able to bring them some other opportunities. And I think that those things that I just shared with you, I also would have those great conversations with people and saying, well, have you thought about this, and have you tried this, and have you ever considered yourself doing this type of activity? And I've always I think with the people that I work with every day, that's what I'm trying to do with them, to say what, may, you're doing a great job here, and your work is really phenomenal, and here are some other things that I think you should try to keep life exciting, because it's always about looking for something different. It's one of the things I like a lot about the job that I do now, because each day is different. I don't think that I do the same thing every single day, any single day during the school year. And I also think I love the newness of so many things, because I would often say, you know, I think I've seen it all. And just the minute I even think that, I get a telephone call or an email and say, nope, I just learned something new, or I've just discovered something absolutely brand new that I've never had to take on before. And that's one piece that I really love about this work, is that I get to work with um, adults every single day. I also get a little bit of some student interaction too, because that's how I find I keep my life balanced. If things are feeling a little bit heavy in the office, I go out to a school and have a little walkthrough and see all of the great work that you and your colleagues are doing out in the schools. And I get to talk to those kids. And whether it's a high school student or an elementary student or even a student at middle level, they always have great things to tell me. And it always strikes me how quick they are without knowing me, really. I walk in and say hello. And usually the elementary students and even the middle, the first thing out of their mouth is, who are you? What are you doing here? That's a question I get often. They find when the stranger in the building, what are you doing here? Who are you? And as soon as I tell them, some of them haven't figured that out. They call oftentimes one kid at I think it was Quispam Elementary School, and I said, "Well, I'm the superintendent," and he said to all of his friends, "Look, guys, it's the Super Nintendo." So I thought, well, it's close, but not exactly there. So it's been, I just spent some time working as the director of curriculum at the district level, and then as a director of schools, which I really loved a lot. And then it's been just over a year that I landed in this position as the superintendent, and it's lots of fun every single day.
Thanks, Derek. I think we need to get you a t-shirt. Super Nintendo.
That would be great. Now, my son's not thrilled about the whole gig. He's disappointed that I'm not calling more storm days and closing schools on snow and weather days. His first comment to me last year was he came out of his room with his hands on his hips. He's 13, and he said, "Well, is school canceled?" And I said, "No, we're still running. It's just a little bit of snow." He looked at me and put his hands on his hips and he says, "You're the worst superintendent ever." And
well, fair enough.
I know. And then just this past year, when we had one of those days, I think it was a late start, because he was hoping the freezing rain was going to close school. And I said, "Yeah, no, we've got an hour delay, but we're still going." But he stomped back to his bedroom and he came out a few minutes later and he says, "All my friends hate you, you know."
Oh my God.
So
that would be tough.
yeah, so I'm really like I often think of that because on days whether we close or stay open, we always get a few emails from people who aren't happy with the decision, and so those sometimes I want to reply back, and I said, "No, I get it. I'm just the worst superintendent yet, and
Ever.
all your friends hate me."
There you go. Oh dear. Okay, well that's great, Derek. Thanks. Guys, the time is yours now. You can hit them up for a raise, you can ask for a transfer, like whatever you need. This is your chance. But no, seriously, if you do have questions that you'd like to ask them, feel free.
It is. We are starting to work on the staffing plan for next year. And I think at least one of you said that they were just a recent recipient of a B contract. So that's exciting. That's always a great time. That was Iman. And the staffing will come around. It's always a very stressful period, but we try to work through that as well as we can through that process this winter and spring.
I just have a question. They sent us a form about the leaves, and they are saying forms of leaves and other than educational leaves. I didn't get that part.
Okay, so yeah, that just has to do. Sometimes we'll have teachers or staff that want to take like part of a year or a full year off of work, and it would be like a leave without pay because maybe they're going to go try another job or try something else somewhere else, and so to do that, there's now that process to submit the request for like that type of leave. But I know Human Resources wanted to make clear that that doesn't have anything to do with maternity leaves, educational leaves that we have. Those still follow the same process, or deferred salary leaves. So that it was different than that type of leave request.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome. Those are great opportunities too.
Yeah, go ahead.
Well, I mean, obviously the maternity one, that one's a really clear one, but deferred salary leave is we have an arrangement that people can make so you can actually get them to take a certain portion of your salary over so many years, and then you can take time off and collect that salary then. So that's why it's called a deferred salary leave. So you apply to that into Human Resources and Payroll, and they set it up. So for example, there's a couple of different arrangements, but one of them is called like a 4/5, and it means you work 4 years, and during those 4 years you get 80% of your salary. And then in the 5th year, you take the year off, you don't have to work, and then you'll draw that 80%. So for 5 years, you'll get 80% of your salary, but be able to take a 5th year off and not work, which is kind of a nice gig for employees, right? Like that's if you can figure out financially how to live on 80%, then you can do that. And there are other arrangements too, so they can be partial years or there can be a longer stretch as well. And then the educational year one, that's that's an agreement between the Department of Education and Early Childhood and the Teachers Federation, and so that you can apply for an educational leave. You have to have, I think it's 5 years experience, and with a B contract. And if you want to go back to school and do a master's degree or do other coursework, then and that actually went up in the last collective agreement. So it actually pays 80% of your salary. Now that's a little more competitive because obviously not everyone who applies can get it, but you go through a application process. But that's a great opportunity as well. That's how I finished my master's degree in education a number of years ago. I had a year off to go and work at it. Cindy?
I'm just from someone that actually took it deferred recently. I did a 506 and I would definitely recommend it. And I think a lot of people don't look at doing deferreds because they do think, well, oh, jeepers, I can't live on, on that little. But I did the 506, which I think is the longest you can do. So I paid into it for 5 years and I took 6 months off. I did January to June. You don't need to take a full year. And it's only 8% of your gross pay. So for me, it really, it wasn't a lot. I mean, when you look at how much is kind of at the end of the day, so you get used to it fairly quick. So if a person really wanted to do a deferred, but they didn't want to, they were concerned about the money aspect. That one, again, it's only 8% of your gross pay. So it wasn't that hard a chunk of that to swallow. So.
I've done
Great.
one as well. Mine was a 6/7, and I did 6 months, the same as Cindy. I took January to June, and you don't even notice it because you're not putting so much gas in your car. You're not buying your lunch. You're not, and honestly, what a beautiful mental health break. And also what a great time. My daughter was little at the time, so it was so nice to be home when she got home from school. It was just really nice. And so I highly recommend it once you have your years of service in.
I have a question, Derek. As a teacher of any vintage, would there be any instance when I might want to contact my superintendent?
Sure. I think I'll think on the positive side of things first, but
For sure.
yeah, I mean, I want people, I want to be approachable. And I think, as I was saying to people before, it's really hard to be out there and in all of our 69 buildings across the district and seeing all the people that you need to. But I'm always going to answer my email. Now, it might not be all that immediate. I try my very best to get it done, very timely. But if people have questions that they're really not sure who to ask the question to, I'll find the person to ask that question to. And so sometimes I would encourage people to do it. I never get offended when people send me an email and ask me. I had a teacher email me one day, and he was concerned about the parking lot recently, and I just and about because it had been quite icy and things hadn't been cleaned up, and I didn't get offended by that at all. I mean, I directed them. I said, here's the person you need to talk to for sure. And that, and they'll follow up on it to make that happen. So I never get upset or angry when people reach out to me, and I certainly will try my very best to get their email in the right direction so that they can get the answer that they need. And if people find themselves in difficult situations and they don't really know, who to talk to about it, then I can certainly help and get them pointed in the right direction.
Thank you.
I do try my hardest to farm all of those things to the right people, though. And so, we have my team of directors that I work with on a daily basis. I always, if it belongs in their ball diamond, that's where I send it to be, so that people are talking to the right people who can get them the right answers and in a more timely fashion. But certainly am open to people reaching out if they need to.
Emily, I think you put your hand up there for a second.
Yeah. I would like to ask how long do I need to wait to get a B contract? Right now I'm getting a D contract. Yet I'm a teacher from Hong Kong. I have experience in Hong Kong and in BC as well. So I just want to see how long I can.
Sure.
Yeah.
Well, Emily, it's a much easier task these days than what it was probably even 5 years ago, because we would have had 5 years ago, we probably would have had people who had been D-contract people for 5, 6, and 7 years. Not like Cindy with the 6. And that really had to do with, the number of qualified teachers out there versus the number of positions. So now we're seeing fewer people out there, but also a higher number of positions because of our increasing enrollment. So we keep a list, and the list is established by seniority, but the seniority isn't the qualifying factor. Like if someone comes and says, well, I've been working for 5 years, I deserve the B contract over somebody who's been 1 year. That doesn't have, we can determine who we're going to next. And so the very first thing that we would do though, is we would look at that list, because we don't want people, if there are people out there working really hard and doing a really terrific job, we don't want them spending years and years and years on a D contract, because we want to give them that confidence of having the B. So that's why we do keep track of it that way. We would also take in, like for your example, since you bring experience with you, we would move you up on that list. So even though you may have only worked for 1 year or 2 years in Anglophone South, we would consider your experience just for that reason, as we want to. We would take a look also at operations for us. Like if we had a really significant need for math teachers, we might go down through our list of D's and say, well, we really need to shore up these math teachers because we have a really big need for it. That doesn't play as much in the game today because we're in the need of teachers. So we really need every single one that we can. But basically, we have to align our numbers each year. So if our district has 2,000 full-time jobs for teachers, then we can't have more than 2,000 B contract teachers in the system. So if there are, 25 teachers on leave from jobs, we have to have 25 D contracts, letter D contracts, because when those Bs come back to us from wherever they are, if they're on leaves, then we have to have a position for them. So that's just the reason why that number game plays. But I think we had people back in the fall who were 2 years and under in our district who were getting offered B contracts. So I would say you don't have a long time to wait. And one of the important things is if you're, I'm hopeful that our school administrators are out doing walkthroughs and giving teachers feedback now. But if you're, a first year with us, I would really make sure that the principal is getting those the formal evaluations done, and you're having that conversation, because we would look to the file to make sure that the person has been evaluated and has a positive performance evaluation before we send out that B contract offer.
I see. And then after, for example, this is my first year, and then after my first year service, and how do I know my next year we're going to be in the same school, or I need to reapply, or whatever I need to do for that?
Yeah, the directors of schools will do a session, like a virtual session with all of the D contracts to walk through the process. But essentially what we do is, once we determine our staff for the school for next year, and we figure out who's coming back, and we declare jobs vacant, then we will post all of those jobs that are available to every teacher that's on a D contract. And then they have the opportunity to apply, and we have to choose a D contract first before we choose a brand new person who's never worked for us. So that will happen probably around May or June, when those lists will start coming out. But we'll do a session with all of the D contract people and walk them through all of the steps so that they understand what they have to do next.
Thank you very much for the information.
You're welcome. And most times, like for example, in your school, if you're doing a job there now and that job's going to be there next year, or another job in the school, And if you're doing a really good job and your principal really tells you you're doing a good job and tells us you're doing a good job, then you'll kind of have an opportunity for that job ahead of other people.
Thank you.
Great. Well, that's nice to have some good questions, good hard hitting questions. Emily, you go for that B. You keep bugging him for that B.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I will.
You know,
Yeah.
it is a strange piece. It used to be really an exciting thing to do, was to bring that B contract to someone. Sometimes people aren't as excited about that as they used to be, because they like having that opportunity to keep moving around to all kinds of different schools. But I got to deliver a few back in the fall, and it's still pretty exciting for people who really want that, because that does help you really feel safe and secure.
Absolutely. Well, Derek, thank you so much for your time. We
Absolutely.
are at the perfect time, 4:14. Thank you guys for taking a little bit of time out of your day and getting to know your superintendent, and in turn having him get to know you. That's always really good. I look forward to seeing you guys. Next week, we have our new teacher learning community just touch base. And I hope you're able to join us. And that's it. You know how to reach me if I can help you in any way, shape, or form. And I look forward to seeing you guys next time.
Thank you.
Absolutely.
Thank
Take
you.
care, everyone. It's so nice to meet you all here.
Nice to meet you.
Bye now.
Thank you. Bye.
Good night, everyone.